you.
It's 1996. The average house price is $166,400. A gallon of gas costs $1.23, and a dozen eggs will run you about $1.31. The new for 1996 3.5 RL starts at $41,000. In 1996, that was quite an investment. Replacing the Legend in North America as Acura's premium flagship sedan, the RL would try to further solidify Acura as North America's most successful Japanese premium brand. But would the 3.5 RL, with its front-wheel drive V6, be able to hold up against its competition, most of which were rear-wheel drive V8s? Well, let's take a journey back to 1996 and find out. The mid-90s was a very different time. People still shopped at brick-and-mortar stores and walked around without cell phones. And humans even interacted with other humans. It really was an ancient time. Unlike today, higher-end luxury vehicles of this time period were not SUVs, were generally not all-wheel drive, and were not particularly sporty. Flagship luxury models were still predominantly rear-wheel drive V8 sedans, but Honda, and therefore Acura, was all in on their front-wheel drive obsession and still refused to produce a V8. Nevertheless, Acura still believed the 3.5 RL could take on such competition. Okay, Acura, let's see what you got. Now, everywhere other than North America, the 3.5 RL is the third generation Honda Legend, and that's essentially what it is here too, but the name change was due to market research showing low brand awareness for the Acura nameplate. So with the exclusion of the Integra, all model names became alphanumeric designations, something most other luxury brands were already doing. Now instead of just saying I drive a Legend, you have to say I drive a 3.5 RL, and the name is so bland that whoever you're talking to is going to say, what the hell is an RL? And you would say, it's an Acura, don't you know? Unlike last year's Legend, the 3.5 RL did not offer a coupe, nor did it offer a manual transmission, something that displeases me, but their target market was not looking for sports cars. This streamlined sedan was all about elegance and comfort. That's not to say that performance wasn't important too though. In fact, Acura did market the car as a performance luxury sedan. It was just a performance sedan for mature business professionals, who didn't feel the need to shift their own gears as they were far too busy counting money and seeking out new investments. They are Acura owners after all. That's what rich people do, right? The initial styling on the 3.5 RL was okay, but in my opinion a little bland, at least the pre-refresh model. Now it's not that it looks bad or anything, but it looks a little too similar to the 3.2 TL, especially from the back. I do think they improved a lot with the mid-model refresh, but we'll get to that in a minute. Comparing the 96 models though, it's hard to pick a favorite. I definitely like the Lexus better from the back, but the RL looks a little cleaner from the front. Cylinders aren't everything, Shannon. I've got style on my side. Wait, who is this? Hey buddy, the Datsun meet is 2 streets over in the high school parking lot. I can't believe that's a Q45 though. They sure have glowed up since that awkward first generation. The interior is simple and well laid out and has a beautiful fit and finish, rear climate vents and all, with the only options being traction control and a DVD-based navigation. Comparing it to the LS400 interior, it's a close call, but I think I might give the RL a slight edge. No, we don't have time to look at your interior too. Okay, that's actually pretty nice. Well, I guess we'll talk about the engine now. Stop saying that, 6 is average. Power on the 3.5 RL comes from a 3.5-liter longitudinally mounted V6. Like the Legend, the RL still uses this longitudinal front-wheel drive setup, but a slightly larger 3.5-liter V6 as compared to the 3.2-liter of last year, which was now being used in the 3.2 TL. Oddly though, at 210 horsepower, power was down slightly from the 230 horsepower Type 2 C32A1 that was present in the coupe models in the GS sedan of last year, although there was more torque. Remember, these old 90-degree C-Series V6 engines were quite different from the 60-degree J-Series V6 we are used to seeing in Hondas today. They're non-VTEC but offer a smooth delivery of power and actually have some low-end torque. In fact, on the RL, peak torque on these engines was 2,800 RPM. Shocking to say that about a Honda product, I know. It really made the RL great for city and in-town driving. And if opened up on the highway, that V6 could still rake in plenty of speeding tickets. And it will do so in a quiet, smooth fashion with extremely minimal road noise, even at high speeds. Because you're an Acura owner after all. The first generation generation RL was in production for 9 years, much longer than the typical 4 or 5 year production run we usually see. As such, there would be several updates made throughout its lifespan, but the first and most significant cosmetic refresh was done for the 1999 model year. On the rear, the turn signals and reverse lights were repositioned to the top of the taillights, and the chrome trim around the license plate cutout became a single strip at the top. On the front end, the headlights became larger and taller, and the fog lights that had previously been integrated into the front headlamp assemblies was moved down to the bumper. The bottom of the now larger grille came to a point in the center, and the front bumper was redesigned to accent this. I really think this post-refresh front end makes the RL look a lot better. It makes it look much more confident and refined, and even slightly aggressive, and differentiates it more from the TL. For the 2000 model year, the navigation system got a larger display screen. For 2002, the suspension setup was changed again to be made sportier, and power output on the engine was bumped up to 225 horsepower and 231 pound-feet of torque. For 2004, the amber turn signal lenses in the taillights were made clear, and the interior was upgraded with a redesigned navigation system which was now standard equipment along with a satellite radio. The center console was redesigned to accommodate this change. There were also new interior color options and a new steering wheel. 2004 was the last model year for the KA9RL, and it would mark the end of the longitudinally mounted front-wheel drive C-Series family of engines, with all future Honda V6s using the J-Series platform. So how did the first generation RL perform? To be frank, not well. When it debuted, it was already fighting an uphill battle against the more powerful second-gen LS400 with its V8 engine. By 2004, the LS400 was in its third generation and now had a 290 horsepower V8 with an absurd amount of high-end options like ventilated seats, very uncommon to see in 2004. We should note though that by this time, a well-equipped LS400 was a good $20,000 more than an RL. However, the fact that the RL was cheaper didn't help it to sell any more units. In fact, it might have hindered it, as it had been kind of bumped down to a mid-level luxury sedan by the competition at this point, and therefore was being overshadowed by Acura's own TL, which in contrast to the RL was Acura's best-selling model for 2004. I think the 3.5 RL's success was really hindered by the lack of the V8 engine. John Davis waited patiently for years, but that Honda V8 never came, nor did a full complement of analog gauges. Now, Honda engineers may argue that a V6 is perfectly adequate and in fact the most efficient and logical engine choice for a vehicle the size of the RL, and that may be true on paper, but the fact is, a premium flagship luxury car is not about being adequate, efficient, or even logical. It's about excess. I don't want an adequate amount of power, I want an excess amount of power. I want more luxury features than I could ever need or use, because after all, I'm an Acura owner. Hey Shannon, check out my new look. Oh, you've been updated too. Whoa, what did they do to you, Datsun? Well, I guess we'll talk about the second gen now. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, Shannon. Despite 9 years of rather unimpressive sales numbers, Acura decided to give the RL another chance to shoot its shot with a complete redesign for 2005. While many expected Honda to finally build a V8 engine for the new second generation RL, the RL remained a V6, but it was now on the more modern J-Series platform like the rest of the Honda and Acura V6 family. The engine was a single overhead cam 3.5-liter VTEC V6 outputting 290 horsepower. Still a little behind the competition, to be frank, especially when the new LS460 coming out next year would have damn near 400 horsepower. But as John Davis puts it in the 2005 RL Motor Week review, when the market expected Honda to zig, they zagged. Instead of focusing on a more powerful engine, Honda tried to focus on technology and an advanced all-wheel drive handling system to one-up the competition. The new RL featured Honda's brand new SH all-wheel drive system, which could not only vary power distribution from front to back, but also from side to side in a technique called torque vectoring. Up to 70% of available torque could be sent to the rear wheels, and when cornering, up to 100% of that rear torque could be sent to a single side. This means when cornering, extra torque distributed to the outside rear wheel would help push the rear end around a curve faster, minimizing understeer. And the technology doesn't stop there. The RL was one of the first cars to have proximity keyless entry. That's where you have the key fob in your pocket and you just put your hand near the door handle and it unlocks. The 260-watt 10-speaker Bose audio system did more than just play music. Even if the stereo was off, the Bose active noise cancellation analyzed the drivetrain and background road noise low frequencies that entered the cabin and then output a precisely shaped reversed phase frequency audio signal of the background noise to cancel it out. Now, of course, there is Bluetooth and satellite radio and dual zone automatic climate control, but here's an interesting thing about the climate control. If you were driving in a situation situation where part of the car was in the sun and part was in the shade, a solar sensor tied to the climate control system would add some cool air to the sunny side of the cabin to keep that occupant cool without lowering the temperature on the shady side. Of course, in any car with regular dual-zone climate control, the passenger in the sun could just turn the temperature down, or the shady passenger could just turn the temperature up. But that would involve the inconvenience of reaching forward and turning a knob. Far too trivial of a task for prestigious elites such as ourselves. We are Acura owners after all. Okay, so what about the styling? Well, the inside is pretty nice, very luxurious looking, no complaints there, but the outside, let's just say I'm not surprised the TL sold a lot better. In 2006, Acura would add an optional technology package that included new driver's assist features, adaptive cruise control, and collision mitigation braking. Now, when Karen rear-ends someone because she was texting and driving, she can blame her Acura for not braking for her. It's not a self-driving car, Karen. You still have to drive your vehicle.
You're thinking steak. Your car informs you to avoid the next exit, and that you'll have fresh powder in Aspen tomorrow. And for steak, your car recommends the filet at Boulevard. The highly intelligent, redesigned Acura RL with technology package.
2009 was the mid-model update, and I have to say exterior styling was much improved, especially the rear. Acura said this was their most extensive mid-model change ever. I would have to agree. From a cosmetic standpoint at least, they did a lot more than just delete the amber from the turn signal lenses this time. Under the hood, the engine was upgraded to a 3.7 liter, but there was only a modest increase in power. Inside, front seats were revised to be more comfortable, and they were not only heated, but now also ventilated. Extra wood grain trim straight from the plastic tree was added to the steering wheel and to the top of the shifter, to emphasize the fact that the RL is in fact the upscale flagship model, despite the fact that most people had never heard of it and were only visiting the Acura dealer to buy a TL or a TSX. There was another update for 2011 where Acura toned down the corporate front end that many had complained about on both the RL and TL. There were also new colors added, a new 6-speed automatic transmission, power folding mirrors, and standard parking sensors. There are also some other resonator and noise cancellation features we could talk about, but how long can I really talk about reverse phase cabin noise cancellation frequencies before people get bored and click off the video? Probably not very long. We get it, Acura, the cabin of the RL is quiet. The last year for the RL would be 2012. It honestly had a pretty disappointing performance, being vastly outsold by its competition. Again, the RL was a nice car, but at its price point, people expected a V8. And let's compare it to its own internal competition for a moment. A 2009 RL started at $69,500. A 2009 TL started at $44,900 and had essentially the same engine and honestly most of the same features. If you want to spend $70,000 on a luxury car in 2009, buy this instead. But don't tell Shannon I said that. The RL was replaced for some reason by the RLX, which didn't sell either, but Honda can be stubborn sometimes when they think they know better than what their consumers say they want. But the success of the Legend, followed by the long decline in sales for the RL, is a good lesson in what happens when a brand stops listening to their customers. And on that note, what car do you guys want to see a deep dive video on next?